us. All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We are going to get things started here momentarily. Just bear with us for 1 second as you start getting logged in. Tony, if you want to at this point, you could go ahead and share your screen, and this way our participants make sure that they're able to see the application at hand. In any case, on behalf of DataFirst, I want to thank all of you for being part of our webinar today. The topic is Enterprise Image Management Just Got Easier, integrating HL7 and image routing into one limitless workflow engine. All of you participants are in listen-only mode, but we want to make this as interactive as we possibly can, and we will do the best to address your questions throughout the course of today's webinar and at the end of the live Q&A session. You can ask questions in the Q&A feature and also in the chat. To make sure that you can see the screen, and obviously you could hear us as well, you should see on the screen today's webinar agenda, HL7 Simplified. If you can see that, can you please raise your hand? This way it'll give us some indication. Thank you, Matthew, Colleen, Michael. Awesome. So you can see us and you can hear us as well. So with no further ado, let's get things rolling. I want to pass things over to our President and CEO, Bo Jones, who will then bring in our Executive Director of Engineering Services, Tony Palmer. But with no further ado, Bo Jones, take it away, bud.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Appreciate all the work and effort that's gone into this presentation. And my welcome to everybody this afternoon. Thanks for carving out 20 or 30 minutes to take a look at the Silverback Workflow Engine. This is really the first in a series of webinars that we are creating kind of mini vignettes, if you will, to showcase specific features and functions of the Silverback Workflow Engine, which on the lower end of the scale is really an intelligent router, and on the higher end of the scale is a much more robust kind of orchestrating engine to sit in the center of your imaging enterprise to help both PACS administrators and technicians really manage content better within the framework of their imaging enterprise. Today, we're specifically going to focus on the integration of our HL7 engine. Our intent here was really to kind of demystify, to the extent that there is mystery around the HL7. Certainly there was for me. But really the integration of the HL7 engine with a full-fledged and intelligent workflow orchestrator / DICOM router, both in the way that it looks and the way that individuals would interact with it. So our intent here was really just to spend about 20 minutes giving you a very broad overview, but also for this to be very intentional with respect to engagement or questions. So any questions that arise during the next 20 minutes, please raise your virtual hand or send into the chat box. Clearly, given the depth of HL7 and the comprehensiveness of what we have here, we certainly won't be able to answer or go into specific depth. But the intent is, if there is interest, that we can schedule a follow-up demonstration where we can go into the specific issues that you might have at your facility, or even how we might be able to optimize your workflow. So with that, I'm going to turn that over to our Director of Engineering Services, Tony Palmer, for introductions, and we'll start the presentation.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining wherever you are. Appreciate the time. As Bo mentioned there, I like that keyword, demystifying. Depending on the world you come from in healthcare, HL7 may be your cup of tea. DICOM may be your cup of tea. Some people certainly deal with both. But what we've tried and I believe succeeded in doing is taking the same simplification around DICOM and incorporating that into our HL7 components of Silverback. So to drive efficiency, a single application that you can do all of your DICOM routing and all of your HL7 interfacing in one platform. The ability to efficiently do that both from a DICOM perspective with point and click operations, very intuitive and guiding you through those processes to create a DICOM route. And the same efficiency goes into creating an HL7 interface. The ability that we brought into the HL7 carries many years of multiple people's experience. So you'll see some of the ability to streamline the creation of an HL7 interface mapping or transformation. You'll see that in real time on screen. I don't need to be creating a message, sending it through, make sure that the target system received it correctly. I can see as I'm creating the interface what it looks like in and out. So just an efficient design, just that immediate feedback. The ease of use that we have with our Silverback carries through, it's a web-based solution, so I can access that from anywhere in my enterprise. That same look and feel that we have with DICOM routing carries through with HL7. The same rules-based methodologies that we use around what we call profiles or templates for different aspects that are configured in DICOM are also available in different forms of HL7 interfacing. So just a quick overview there. We're going to walk through each of these, the efficiency, that ease of use, as I talked about, and we'll pop back in here at the end and talk about the scalability and redundancy that's built into Silverback. All right, I'm going to hop into demonstration. This is the fun part for me. I don't know how many people are familiar with Silverback from a DICOM routing perspective, but I wanted to just quickly show the look of that. So we're in routing here. This is a configuration of a DICOM route. We've got different sources coming in. It's listening on a particular port. I'm not going to dive into all the configuration details of this, but I'll just show you the quick overview. This is routing to a couple different PACS groups. I've got an association manager. This is showing all the DICOM traffic inbound, where it came from, basic demographics, study information, inbound, and then where that study was routed to. These were all successful. So you've got filtering up above here to narrow down as needed. I can retry anything, reset as just standard behavior from a DICOM routing perspective. I bring this up mostly just so that you can see as we dive into the HL7 here, we've got the exact same look and feel as we did with a DICOM route around setting up an HL7 route and corresponding interfaces. So I am going to dive in here a little bit more. So I've created this route. I've just called this my ADT orders and results to our PACS and VNA. We've got different types of sources. Typically we're dealing with network, so over TCP/IP, but we can read from file. By default, we're going to take these in and they'll be ready to be sent immediately. But just like with DICOM, we can hold them if there were any operations that needed to be triggered off of those manually, so they could be staged. I'm binding that to my local address here. I can set this up for TLS because this is internal. I'm not using TLS, but if you did need to go out over the internet, we can set up a secure connection for both DICOM traffic and HL7 traffic. When you're dealing with HL7, you're dealing with lots of message volume, and different target systems may have different abilities to receive as quickly. So we can add delays between messages as needed. Got different acknowledgements. we can act immediately, or we can wait till we've actually stored and parsed the message to make sure that we have it fully before we acknowledge that, and it's parsed successfully. So this is the basics. You know, I'm listening on a particular port on my local machine. Now I'm setting up different route interfaces. So these are the HL7 targets that I'm going to be routing to. I've got one that I'm sending to PACS, one to my VNA, and one to an offsite reading remote PACS. Just different examples here. Just quickly, I can look at the configuration of these. These are all set to be forwarding, so I can do different operations. This is to forward these. I could save these to a file. I can trigger prefetch operations. I can populate a modality work list. I can populate a master patient index. If I need to, if this has got encapsulated PDFs embedded, I can extract PDF reports. So this is the PACS interface. And as I mentioned, the way that we define rules and templates around component aspects are called profiles. So in this case here, I've got the ability to select rules, profiles, and if we look at the VNA one, we're limiting that to just certain message types. But this is basically what we are allowing through, what we're potentially blocking across these different targets. I can do specific field level mappings, and I can do a specific schedule. So if I need messages to only transmit during certain times of the day, I can do that here as well. And the real power comes into actually a whole transformation of a source to target message. So this one's using a pretty simple transformation, really just changing the inbound HL7 231 to an outbound 2.8 version. If I were to look at the VNA interface here, I'm using a rules profile in this case to only send specific messages to the VNA. And we'll pop into that here in a couple minutes. No specific formatting on it. I'm just allowing everything to flow through except for, from a formatting perspective, except for certain messages. And then just as another example to my remote PACS, again, I've got a different message that's being triggered through the formatter. And this is doing a transformation of an ORU to generating an ORM message. So the remote PACS may not have the order that's necessary. So I'm going to trigger that ORM out to generate the order as we process the study through. So just different examples there. Obviously, you have full control on the number of threads and the number of retries for each of these individually. Just real quick, for every interface, you can set up a purge criteria, how long you want to keep these messages around. I've got mine set to a very high number, since this is my demonstration environment, I don't want to lose my demo data. As we saw with the DICOM Association Manager, we have a similar look and feel for the HL7 Manager. This shows all inbound traffic. So I've got filtering as above, all my different event types, what interface they were received on, and different patient study level information and the status of those. Inbound, I should not have any trouble, but if I needed to, I could set these back to ready to trigger outbound processing again. A little more interesting when we start looking at the outbound of what we're actually doing when we receive those different types of messages. So again, our interface is set up to send to 3 different destinations. So you'll see that repetition here, that each message in this ORU R01, this result, was used in this forward 1 interface, forward 2 interface, and forward 3 interface. And I can expand this to see the details of this. So it's saying this interface, which is the remote PACS, what did that actually do? And it used this it transmitted the ORU using this ORU to ORM transformation. And if I wanted to look at that and see what the message actually looks like, I can see the high-level details here. I can see the response, any comments. If there were any failures, comments would reflect that. I can see my inbound message here and my outbound. So if I quickly look, this is obviously my result feed in. It's got all my results in the OBXs, but the mapping set this up to be an ORM outbound. So we didn't need all the OBXs. We don't care about the result text. We're really just concerned about the order level details here. So that's just allowing you to confirm everything successfully went out in a very graphical interface. If there are exclusions, you'll see that here. This is excluded. This happens to be an ORU, and we will look at the exclusion rule that I mentioned. This is going to the VNA, and only certain message types I've set up are being sent to the VNA, and ORUs are not one of them. So you'll see that one's just been excluded. If there were failures, I can see those in red here. I can dive down and see what happened. I can see no connection could be made to that target. So I can go and start up that target and reset that back to ready, and that will trigger that to be sent outbound. If I refresh that, that'll take care of that one. If I needed to and had a large group of these failures or any other condition, I could filter that down. So if I wanted to just see the failed, I could choose all of those. And then as a group, I can set them all to ready and reprocess those. Yep. So if I filter those now because I'm on failed ACK, those should all be reprocessed outbound, and they're all gone. So now we have no more failures. We've got still the exclusions, which we would expect. So very simple workflow here. The level of detail that you can dive into from a troubleshooting perspective just increases that efficiency overall. What I want to talk about is how to create one of these transformations. So the great thing that we've done here is based on an incoming message, I can look at the message viewer here, and I'm going to choose just a little simpler one, an ADT. And you can see in the message viewer, I can see what's inbound, but right here, I can click on the format transform, and I can choose what message type I want to send this out as. And it could be the same type, and very simple modifications to it. As I load this, I can load here. I've got different options. I can do a full script that applies to this message. And I can see a preview of the source to target in real time. So here is the inbound message. If I want to, I can expand any of these, and I can change this to be, by default, we include it. I can add extra fields. I can forward it. I can ignore it. I can do different actions on this. So if I look at my actions, these are the different types of things I can do within actions here. If I just need to set a string value, if I need to copy this to a different location within the message, if I want to ignore it, different string operations, prefix, suffix, trim. If I need a certain component out of this, I can even run a C# script that I create here as well. So I can put criteria around that as needed. So very powerful, and I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. I'm going to show just an example of one of these. Here's where's my ORU to ORM. So this is that message transformation where we're taking the ORU in and we're outputting an ORM. So you see the full ORU with all the OBXs, and these have all been set to ignore. So the outbound message contains the ORM level information that's needed. Again, I can see this in real time. I can expand any of these. So I can see the inbound was an ORU and outbound is an ORM. Any other tweaks that I needed to make, I can do that as well. And once I've saved this and apply it to a route, all that takes effect immediately. So these transformations, once you've defined them, can obviously be used on any route. You can specify the applicability of those across different messages as well. So just like we have in DICOM with different profiles, compression, scheduler, tag management, HL7 has its own set of settings, and we talked about the formatter here. Storage is if we need to dump to a file location. We can do field level and HL7 rules. Since I've already mentioned this, I'll just dive in here. So this is the rule that was applied to the VNA interface. And as I name the rule, send only specific messages. So my action here is a pass in this case. And I'm going to pass only the selected messages here. So, in this case, the VNA only cares about, a few of the ADT messages. It doesn't care about every type of ADT message. So it just really cares about the updates and merges. So very fine-grained control on what you allow to flow through to different interfaces. Very simple operation to set those up. That can be a pass. I could, if I was trying to send a lot of things through and just wanted to block a couple things, I could set that up in reverse. And throughout both the DICOM and the HL7, we have the concept of creating a custom plugin. So I won't go too into depth on that, but they're basically specialized code modules that can be created to meet specific customer workflow needs. Yeah, so that is a very quick and brief. I know that was really just to get your whet your appetite, get your little view of what Silverback looks like from an HL7 perspective, and that same look and feel that we've carried through from the DICOM. I'm going to pop back to the PowerPoint here. Just real quickly on scalability and redundancy. So Silverback is designed to be deployed with any number of instances of Silverback behind a load balancer. So that provides both the scale and the redundancy. It's that load balancer distributes this DICOM traffic or HL7 traffic in an active mode. Just the load balancer distributes what we call in a round robin form. And that way, if any single instance goes down or is being upgraded, the other instances of Silverback are receiving all of the traffic. There's no downtime involved. So that same scalability that we brought to DICOM is incorporated as well within the DICOM and now HL7 interfaces. So I'll turn it back over to you, Dennis, for questions.
You got it, Tony. Thank you very much. Thank you once again for everybody for being at or attending our webinar today. And we do have more coming later this summer, as Bo stated. In the meanwhile, as you prepare your questions, whether it's either in the chat or in the Q&A, and we've had a number of questions come through the Q&A that we have addressed directly there. We'll do our best to make sure that we answer these live for you. And if we do not have time to address them on the webinar today, we'll make sure that we have the appropriate follow-up. When you do exit the webinar, there's a brief survey. We ask that you take that survey to just give us some direct feedback on the content presented and what you want to see in the future from us as well. We are going to be displaying a full booth with demo capabilities at SIM 2024 and booth 325. And we encourage all of you that are attending SIM to visit with us. We'd love to catch up with you in person. In the meanwhile, Tony, we do have a question. The first one is, how does the Silverback HL7 engine manage messages if the HL7 target is not accepting messages? Can they be resent once the HL7 target becomes available again?
Yeah, and I hope that I know I covered that briefly, but there could be various reasons that a message doesn't go through network-wise, the target's down. But we try to capture as much information in that comment field, but that is showing as a failure in the HL7 manager. And then it's just a matter of confirming that target system is back up or the network has been resolved, whatever is going on that's causing that message to fail or messages to fail, and you retry those right through the HL7 manager.
Thank you. What types of HL7 messages can Silverback handle? Can it handle non-relevant segments like AL1, GT1, FT1, NPU, etc.?
So we have incorporated the HL7 standard for lots of different versions, and I probably didn't show that in too much detail, but you saw when I did the transformation, you start with choosing your target message version. So I believe I chose an HL7 231, And so we've incorporated into Silverback all the various versions going back from the beginning of HL7 to current. And with that is, all the segments that go with those versions, all the fields that go with those versions, and the descriptions of those. Again, the ability to expand that and see, oh, I don't remember what PID 22 is, but I can expand that and see what description that is in this specific HL7 version. So really, any of those mentioned are acceptable. If they happen to be a non-standard inclusion, say an allergies was being included, for some odd reason in a order message or something. Yeah, we would certainly take that in. You have the ability to exclude it from the transformation or just leave it as is. If there are what are in an HL7 world are called Z segments, which I kind of equate to a private field in DICOM, but Z segments are undefined and they can contain any number of pieces of data. But yeah, you can add to a message. So if it's not in the standard as defined, you can certainly go in and add those right in the interface.
Thank you, Tony. I do have we have time for one or two more questions, and any of the questions that we do not get to, we will make sure that we follow up with you offline. In the chat, I put a link. If you're attending SIM, you can schedule a demo. If you're not attending SIM, you can still utilize that link to schedule a demo to see Silverback in action. What are the advantages of having DICOM and HL7 functions within the same software?
Yeah, I mean, that, a lot of what we talked about today of just the similarity of and the interface, like I said up front, there tends to be people that work in DICOM and other people that work in HL7, but having a very similar look and feel for both allows for people to cross over that barrier easily. Obviously, the ability to do crossover workflows, that, like I mentioned, us taking in HL7 messages to populate the data for a DICOM modality work list. That's probably the most common HL7 providing the data for a background DICOM process to query for that data. But there are certainly other instances where you can utilize incoming HL7 information, say in an order, that you want to update in the DICOM header as you route that study. Common mechanism is sort of an automated QC where I want to make sure that the DICOM header matches the order at the level of, say, a study description. So just making sure that if a modality work list wasn't used, that it circles back in the routing process, the order is used as the sort of system of record to update the DICOM. Yeah, there's having the ability to have all that information in a single platform, a single database, even if there are specialty workflows that we're not even thinking of, having that all in one place makes extracting and utilizing that data across those two to be very efficient.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. And once again, appreciate everybody being a part of our webinar today. This brings us to the end of the event. I'd like to bring Bo Jones back on if possible for some quick closing remarks. Bo?
Yep, happy to do it. Tony, thanks for the overview. And our goal here is obviously just to give you a broad opportunity to see what Silverback's capable of doing. We also understand that each of these environments are unique to each facility. So our goal is always to under-promise and over-deliver. So if there's ever a need for you to try the software out at no cost, we will sit beside you. We will install the software, we'll help you configure it, and it'll basically give you a test drive for any period of time that you need to really understand what Silverback is capable of doing to drive efficiency for your facility. We always believe, it's interesting, most of the folks that work at DataFirst have all come from large companies. And part of the challenge with larger organizations is lots of promises can be made with future releases of software, or functionality that was promised isn't quite there. And we believe in putting our money where our mouth is. We believe in redefining what it means to be a partner and walking alongside you. And part of that is allowing you, the customer, to actually experience and use the software in a live environment to actually see what types of value we can drive in the ease of use. It's really the best way beyond the demo to get a sense of what the software is capable of doing. So we're serious about that, and if there's interest, we're happy to have a conversation about how we can help and do a trial version at no cost to the customer, no risk at all. So that's it. Dennis, I want to thank you again, to you and your team, for putting this together, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our webinar for today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.